Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
One of David Cameron's 4 key demands in this EU renegotiation concerns competitiveness. The Prime Minister says the burden of regulation on businesses is too high and that the EU needs to strengthen the single market and accelerate trade agreements with America and China. Arguments about the economic costs or benefits of membership will form a large part of the referendum campaign, with both sides keen to attract the support of business. Those campaigning to remain within the EU say our membership is worth £3,000 to every household in Britain, though the claim is widely disputed. It's based on a CBI claim that the UK's economy is 5% bigger as a result of being in the EU. They also claim that 3 million jobs are linked to trade within the EU, that 45% of UK exports of goods and services go to the EU, and that the value of trade with the EU is £133 billion higher than it would be if we left. Those who argue we'd be better off if we left claim that regulations imposed on business by the EU cost over £33 billion a year, though that's also disputed. They say the 3 million figure on jobs is dependent on trade with the EU, not membership, and argue that the trade would continue if we voted to leave because we currently import more than we export from the EU, so its members would want free trade to remain. They further point out that the importance of UK trade with the EU is declining, citing ONS figures showing that the proportion of UK exports heading for the EU fell from 54.8% in 1999 to 44.6% in 2014. So that's what both sides claim. But an analysis by the House of Commons Library in 2013 of numerous studies into the economic impact of EU membership found no consensus either way, positive or negative. So which side will manage to convince voters? I'm joined now by the former Trade Minister, Digby Jones, and Richard Reid, who founded Innocent Smoothies, and he's campaigning for Britain to stay in the EU. Welcome to both of you. Digby Jones, the EU accounts for 45% of our exports. Why would you risk any of that?
Well, that won't change, because in the morning after any referendum result to come out, Germany, and it's pivotal on Germany, would immediately want some form of tariff-free arrangement with Britain. They make 1 million cars they sell in Britain a year. 75–80% of all the trains you get on every day in this country are built in Dusseldorf.
Sure. You're assuming that, though. We don't know for sure.
No, we don't. No, absolutely right. And what is more, the moment Germany did it, the others would follow, and we would enjoy that as well. There are many arguments to stay in, and there are many arguments to come out. But the one thing that we ought to kill this canard now, is that not one job in Britain is at risk because of EU membership. Not one, because there would be a free trade agreement because we're so important to Europe. And by the way, that doesn't mean that there aren't other reasons why we might want to be in or out. But I get so frustrated with people who go, 3 million jobs are at risk if we're out of the European Union. It's rubbish.
Okay.
It's just not
one job at risk, says Digby Jones.
Well, that's a very easy thing to call as total nonsense. It's clear that if your biggest market is suddenly interfered with, that it won't somehow affect trade. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you know more than most people that businesses need certainty.
Yeah, sure.
What we have right now is unfettered access to the largest market in the world. The fact that we want to start playing around with this, and that's going to be good for business, it doesn't make sense.
But I don't see the added value in belonging to a club that fetters the small businesses of the country every day. If you're a big business, you can pay loads of people to sit in Brussels and argue the toss every day, and you have quite an easy ride.
It's just not the case.
It is. That is. I did it. I did it for years. Personally,
you represented it. You weren't.
You were a small business.
I'm the small business person at the table.
I chair lots of small businesses now.
Yes.
And it is a pain
and I
in the
invest
bum,
in lots
Brussels.
of them. It is a colossal opportunity.
Well, of course
if
it is.
you are an entrepreneur in
no,
the UK and it
no one
makes
is
doing
arguing with
trade.
you.
Well, you're saying you're making it sound like it makes it more difficult. It makes it much easier because it's one set of regulations and 500 million consumers. If you're going to open a shop, would you want to have a shop that had 60 people walk by or 500
and by the way,
people walk by?
that is
Digby Jones?
absolutely right.
Thank
you can
you.
achieve that from a free trade agreement. What you get
we
is
have.
that you get the sales prevention team in Brussels marching valiantly towards 1970, trying to say this is how you will live your life, small business in Hartlepool. And by the way, the same rules will apply to 520 million people. But we all know that Southern Europe, compliance is a voluntary event. We all know that the French don't obey these rules. And then what happens is we and Northern Europe, we're by no means the best. Scandinavia is better than us at this. We obey this stuff, and a small business who doesn't have 427 lobbyists sitting in Brussels every day arguing the case, and you know this as a small business.
I know
get it
this.
every
We
day.
love a bit of legislation.
Okay,
kills us.
let Richard Reid
Kills
come back.
us.
Britain loves a bit of regulation. You're absolutely right. If we come out and you're saying we're going to still trade, which we need to do, we will still have to comply with the regulation because that's the condition of the free trade. So we won't avoid the regulation. The regulation is there whether we're in or whether we're out.
Well-
when we're in, we get to influence the regulation. We get to have
please.
our voice heard.
You tell that to all the money men in the city who have seen Brussels really hammered down with regulation from Brussels.
And you see how bad it
and
gets
did they
when
do it
we
with
aren't
big
there.
cars built
You
in
see how
Germany?
bad it gets
No.
when we are not there
won't be any
at the
difference.
big table where the decisions are made.
We- we do not
So
have
you
that
think we have no
influence.
influence?
Very
Digby
little.
Jones,
You think we are one of the
Very
three
little.
big
Well,
forces in Europe?
Oh, no, we're one of the three big economies of Europe. In fact, we become the biggest economy in
But
Europe.
your
inside
argument-
the next
your
10
argument-
years.
All right, hold on.
We
We
don't
need to
have
move
any
on. I want to
influence.
ask you this, Digby Jones. It seems that, I mean, you assume we will still have unfettered access to the single market. But it's been pointed out by Mr. Reid that that means we'd have to meet the conditions of getting into the single market. There could be other costs. For example, free movement of people may well be a cost. That's a price Switzerland and Norway pay. It wouldn't change things.
Let us explore that, because I am very concerned that this referendum is going to become a referendum purely on immigration out in the street, when we ought to be discussing how can European Union reform improve the life of an unemployed 25-year-old in Madrid and a single mum in Athens. And how can the power of Britain, economic and otherwise, commercially, business, how can it be seen as a driver to get the standard of living up? If you base your economy on exporting olives and importing BMWs, you will go bust.
Yeah.
So what they're asking Northern Europe to do is subsidise the growth of olives in the hope that for some reason unskilled people in Southern Europe will do this. Now, what you're going to get from migration, Andrew, is you're going to get unskilled people in Europe coming to rich countries instead of actually getting skilled people in Europe being marketable in Northern Europe. And you can only pull that off with reform.
Yeah, but
and
that-
we should
but
not
if
be
you're- but if
campaigning
we're not
to
inside
stop
the
these
EU, we
people
can't
coming.
do the reform.
We should not be campaigning to stop these people coming. We should be campaigning to get the skills base of Europe up, so they get wealthier, but more importantly, they're more marketable in our markets. Instead
Right,
of
but
which,
there's some-
we stop bright Indians coming. How crass is that?
Yeah.
It's
But
another-
the British government has enough trouble getting the skills base right in Britain, never mind trying to get it right in
Well, but
southern
that's reform. That's
Europe.
reform.
Richard, yeah, but if we're out, we don't reform. Richard Reid, you say that we're in the club, that we can influence the rules, but the British
Well,
has
of course
been,
they are.
but hold on, let me put the question. The British have been on the wrong end of EU majorities on these rules more than any other country that's a member of the EU. We rarely get our way on these things.
Are you joking? We have got the best possible setup. We are part of the EU, but we said no to the euro, we said no to Schengen, we said no to forced migratory targets.
So why do we lose so many majority votes?
Because what I'm saying is, let's look at the big picture. This is a macro decision. Once in a generation, we've got to get it right. The big picture is this: it is a colossal opportunity being part of Europe, and we have got the best version of the deal.
Richard, when you and I, years ago, and you were running Innocent so successfully, I was at the CBI, we were arguing cases about should we join or not the euro. And I can remember sitting in television studios and being told the world was going to end, the sun wasn't going to come up in the morning, and we were going to go to Armageddon and back if we didn't join the euro.
And no one's making that argument. We made the right decision about the euro, and we made the right decision about being in the EU.
The world isn't going to end.
But
But this interview has come to an end. But I thank you both. The debate will go on.